Coming to you from Bob Hendricks Stadium here on the beautiful campus of Murphy High School. This is your Murphy-Robbinsville football pregame show. Tonight's game, of course, featuring the Murphy Bulldogs and the Robbinsville Black Knights, winner Smoky Mountain Conference title. Up here with me tonight, of course, is our sports writer at the Cherokee Scout, Noah Schatzer. Noah, thank you for joining us.
Of course.
And we're here tonight to talk about the game and maybe reminisce a little bit about the historic rivalry between Murphy and Robbinsville. But of course, since we're here at David Gentry Field, as you can see the background, we're getting a little bit chilled out here. But you know, it's gonna heat up pretty quick tonight. I would say, yeah. Anything you want to say? First of all, I'm going to throw to you because we're on David Gentry Field. Murphy's having another good year. Really, the only hiccup, of course, the Christ School game, and even at that, they hung with it for 3 quarters.
I mean, going into that fourth quarter, you could tell Murphy was still in the game, and then it just started to get away from them. And I mean, you're going up against a really good, talented team in Christ School. They're a bigger school. They've got Navy Schuler, who's already committed to Appalachian State.
Right.
So, I mean, they were a powerhouse team, but Murphy started the season. They got that revenge game against Pisgah, and they took down Franklin, and then a couple of teams that maybe weren't up to the par.
Sure, yeah.
But they took down Swain for that historic 4-13 win, and now this is the game that I kind of feel like has been circled on the calendar for both teams this entire season.
You know, when I sat down with Coach D. Walsh of the Robbinsville Black Knights at the beginning of the season, I told him, I said, that could be the title game. And he said, well, he was real skeptical. Now it is, in fact, the title game. But going back to the Murphy Swain game, I do want to mention that, of course, last year, David Gentry, right here on David Gentry Field, appropriately enough, actually won game number 400 against Swain. So how appropriate was it that they went to Bryson City this year and picked up 413? What was that atmosphere like? You were there.
I mean, it really felt like for most of the game, they were in it, and then they scored, and it was, he could either tie it and go into overtime, or he could go for 2, and as soon as they scored, it almost seemed like everyone in the stadium knew Coach Gentry was going for 2, and
it was a late call. I mean, we're talking like a minute and a half left in the game, right?
No, it was definitely a high stakes call that he just had the guts to make the call, and it turned out right for them.
So what is your, we're maybe a little early to ask this, but I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there. What's your prediction for tonight? What do you think Murphy's going to bring to the table against Robbinsville?
I mean, Murphy's line, it all comes down to Murphy's line. You know Murphy just as well as I do. Sure. They love to run the ball. So that's going to hinge on how good their offensive line plays. And on the defensive end, their secondary is good. It's not their strong point, but it's their defensive line that causes a lot of tackles for losses. They put pressure on the quarterback, force them into mistakes. So a huge part of tonight is going to be how that line plays. And I mean, it's hard, obviously, to go against Murphy at home.
Sure.
Especially
with a high-stakes game like this. You got a title game, and it's Robbinsville, which, of course, a historic rivalry here in the Smoky Mountain Conference. And I wish that I could sit here and say that Robbinsville is going to throw out a completely different game plan, but they're probably not, because we like to run the ball as well. We got a prolific guy who just clinched the all-time school record, actually, last week against Andrews, 5,614 yards for Riley Anderson. And not to mention Lex Hooper, another one of the lethal threats in the backfield, which I think early in the season caught a lot of people off guard, especially at Irwin. I remember going to the Irwin game, and those kids were not ready for Lex to run the ball at all. They had Riley triple and quadruple teamed, and Lex was wide open. So it just kind of fluctuated from there. But, of course, the Knights, undefeated, and the only undefeated team left in Western North Carolina, as a matter of fact. However, last year, though, we had a lot of history between these teams throughout the years, but last year, for sure, the Western Regional title game was right here, of course, between Murphy and Robbinsville. And Murphy had won the regular season matchup, then they beat Robbinsville to go to the state title game, which, of course, they won. So, I mean, coming off of that, has Coach Gentry said anything? I mean, kind of like, we're ready. We remember last year, we're going to get them this year too? Or like, what was that? I mean, what's that conversation like? Because he was previewing the game.
Talking to him after they laid the beat down on Cherokee last week, obviously him and the rest of the players, they were excited. Sure. They were ready to get preparing for this game. And like you said, I don't expect Murphy to deviate from their game plan. Yeah. I just feel like it's either going to be a lot of offense tonight, or it's going to be a lot of defense.
Sure.
So it's just such a hard game to pick, because these are obviously two of the top teams.
I mean, there's a reason that we're 10-0 and 9-1 respectively.
Exactly.
I mean, that's why we're here tonight. And You know, you kind of mentioned Cherokee. I do want to throw out there that Cherokee's actually having their off week tonight. They've actually had we'll call it a politically correct rebuilding year. That's what we'll call that for Cherokee, who just won a state title 2 years ago, actually. Went 2-9 this season, unfortunately. But our other games tonight, of course, around the conference, you'll see Hayesville and Swain vying for third place. And, of course, that's going to be big for playoff seeding. And Andrew's looking for a playoff spot as well, as they host Rosman tonight. And I think, is that senior night? Yeah, I was sure about that. Yeah, senior night. So a couple of other big games going on around the area. So with that in mind, though, I think it's about time we go bring in our special guest. We have someone here that covered some Robbinsville football back in the day and was actually at the game. I'm pretty sure that Robbinsville won back in the 03-04 years. Is that correct? Yeah, 2 games in a row. And, of course, Robbinsville has not beaten Murphy a lot this past couple of decades, and that's something they're obviously trying to get over. Beat them in 14 and 15. Of course, Robbinsville won their last state title in 2014, then they beat them in the early 2000s. But Zellery, if you want to come on in, this is Zellery Rogers, who used to work at the Graham-Star, where I'm the editor now. And Zellery, of course, loves Robbinsville football so much.
That's right, I do.
A long-standing, faithful fan. So anything you want to say about the history? I mean, what was your experience when you were covering the Black Knights?
Well, you talked about the game that was played over here that we won.
Sure.
That was the first game in 20 years that we beat them on their home field. And it was pretty remarkable. Of course, everybody was cheering and having a good time. And I think one thing that really stuck with Murphy, probably not in a good way, was when one of our players actually stabbed the Bulldog head with the flag, Black Knight flag. You know, you just can't make that stuff up. So yes, that was pretty funny and good for them. You know, they enjoyed that. And then, as mentioned, also we won again the second year there. But you know, Robbinsville, you know, they have up years and down years, just like all of these small teams do. But I think when it comes to the people they play outside of here, it's a whole different kind of game for those people. I know in the 2014 state championship game that they won, I went to that game, and those guys should have beat them all over the place. And Robbinsville just had more heart. And I remember Cruz Galaviz, a short little Native American guy, just it was as fast as he could be, and he could cut. But at one time, they had to have the first down, and he had like 4 defenders on his back, and he got the first down. They could not take him down. So I thought that was pretty phenomenal. You know, that shows a little bit of the grit that this conference has.
Sure.
And I look for this night to be much the same. 2 very storied, rich, traditional teams. I think Robbinsville still owns the title for the most wins, state titles in the state.
I think that's correct, yes.
And like you mentioned earlier with Riley and Lex, those guys are going to do a lot.
Testing 1 2 3.
It's probably going to come down to the line, as you mentioned.
Sure.
You know, you got to have a strong line, and I think both teams are going to come here playing their A game.
Absolutely, and what you mentioned about the state game, I think is just terrific, because we always get out there and it's like these Eastern Coast teams are not used to our smash mouth style of football here in the mountains, and they get run over, and it's like, where did this come from? We haven't seen this all season. So
I remember one year, now this was way back in the day, even before I was covering sports. We had a team. I was still in high school, as a matter of fact. Might have even been middle school. But we had a team, that was when there was just 1A. It wasn't 1A, 1AA.
Right.
And we were playing a team that was from somewhere downstate. Typically warmer than what it was up here in the mountains, especially during playoff season. As you know, we're all kind of shivering here.
Sure.
So
can't tell it on camera, but the temperature's starting to plummet out here.
So they came in and they were wearing half jerseys. And the other guys on the field were shivering. The other team was over there around heaters and huddled up. And it was blowing blue snow, literally blowing snow.
Right.
And here we are in half jerseys. And they won before they ever stepped foot on the field. You know, so that... And also another thing I just want to mention is that both coaches are well known for pulling a few tricks out of their hat.
That's correct, yes.
So, you know, I look to see some of that tonight as well, especially if the game gets close.
It seems like when it comes time for Murphy-Robbinsville, no matter how the regular season is going, no matter how the records are, both teams step it up. It really does seem that way. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I've only been here for a few years in Western North Carolina, but, I mean, you've been here longer. I mean, what's that? I mean, is it just... steeped in these parents and grandparents that have played before them? I mean, what is it that brings that rivalry out of these teams?
Well, I think it is, a lot of people have relatives that attend all of the different schools, so they're playing cousins sometimes. And so I think it's bragging rights is a lot of it. I think, you can call them mountain guys, whatever you want, but, they come pretty much tough to the field. So they don't have to, and they just like to hit.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but they do. They just like to hit. And I think that, that's pretty much what the Smoky Mountain Conference is.
And it's wonderful to think about. I mean, he was talking about Murphy's line, but I want to brag on Robbinsville just a little bit, because if you go out there and watch the games they've played this year, they've got some big kids. But we went into this Swain game a couple of weeks ago, and that was a very hyped game, obviously. I mean, there were a lot of people saying, Swain's bigger than you guys. They're not going to...
And they were, very much
And
bigger.
they were bigger, but we were quicker. And we had some size up front, and we ended up beating them 43-6. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen tonight. I honestly am not going to make a prediction. As much as I probably should side with Robbinsville on this one, because I'm the editor of the newspaper up there.
You're probably better.
It's too tough to call. That's what I'm saying. I mean, that's what Noah said, and I'm going to stick with that. It's too tough to call. I think it's going to be a smash-mouth football game. So
I think there's one other added thing for Robbinsville is that was put out on Facebook earlier today, and that was Coach Bob Colvin, who was really won so many accolades, through the state and all of those football games that he won back when he was coaching. His health is failing, and he's not doing well, but he still believes in Black Knight football. And they had a picture of him reading the paper and reading the Grand Star, and there was the team there. So he was still, even though he's having a hard time with his health, he's still pulling for the Black Knights. And I think a lot of these kids probably seen that. So that might be a little bit more incentive for them tonight as well. And then there's the fact that Murphy beat Swain 15-14.
Yes.
And we beat them 43-6.
43-6. That's correct. Yes.
Now, high school boys, any night is any night.
It's any night.
That speaks favorably for Robbinsville.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I'm going to go ahead and say I think we're going to win by 14.
Well, there you go. And that's coming from Graham County beloved Zellery Rogers. Yes. So with that in mind, I think it's about time we wrap this up, because we got to get this thing on Facebook and get it fired off before the game. Of course, we want to get you guys hyped up. We're taping this roughly 2 hours before game time right now. So temperature's dropping. I want to thank Zellery. I want to thank Noah, of course, for stopping by. There'll be coverage online tonight, guys. Check out CherokeeScout.com, GrahamStar.com. Our social media accounts are at the Graham Star and at the Scout Sports, I believe, is the Twitter handle for the Cherokee Scout. And we'll be providing coverage in our papers next week, of course, as well. So just check that out. And we want to thank you guys for joining us, and go Knights.
Go Dogs.
Yeah.
Thank you.